name because there were problems with that name. So this is just the kind of a bit about who we are. We are about strengthening ties together. We represent the tapestry of families and relationships connected by adoption, kinship, and customary care, as well as families at risk of breakdown because of complex needs. We create spaces where parents and caregivers can stitch together their experiences, feel seen and accepted, access trauma-sensitive services and supports. So it's a really, I'm very pleased to work with that agency, and I brought some resources so at the end, if you're interested, let's go grab it.
In particular,
People seen this at all? Okay, so I've got a few of these, and also information about the FASD and me program, which includes information about a really cool workshop that happened with youth and young adults with FASD. So there's a lot of really good information. So feel free to come up and grab. If you miss out, maybe I'll hold one back actually, because there's information on how to order them as well. But feel free to take those also so I don't have to fly home. So, I just wanted to tell you a little bit about my glasses back and forth. Sorry, I'm at that age. Polyvagal theory. How many people have done it? I mean, I know it's been brought up 3 times. So I'm excited about. I feel like there's a story completion online that's happened here, which is neat. But how many people have done any kind of training or are aware much of polyvagal theory here? So somebody pretty great. So it was named, really. It was not created. It was named by Dr. Stephen Porges back in the 90s. I became aware of it just before COVID. As I was doing my private practice, and in all my FASD work and numerous trainings, I've learned a lot about how much the body and the bottom of the brain up and those sorts of things really matter. I also had a really important experience when I was doing my master's. I developed something called Graves' disease, which is my thyroid blew out, and happened to be around when I did my practicum. So that experience, while it was very difficult at the time, taught me a great deal about the interconnectedness of our hormones and our body and our nervous system and our moods and our energy and all of those things. And so polyvagal theory just kind of seemed to describe a lot of things that were related to that. So I was drawn to it. Got trained by someone called Deb Dana, who Stephen Porges is a very sciencey guy, and I don't have a very sciencey brain, and I won't use a lot of sciencey language. Deb Dana did a really good job of translating it into better language and better imagery that worked for me, and I'm continuing to try to translate it because I think it's translatable. I happened to be working at that time. I happened to have a number of families in my private practice who had young adults with FASD right around the age of 18 to 22. Just had a bunch of them at the time and became really aware in a new way of the difficulty of that stage of life for both the youth or young adult and the parents. Because you suddenly have someone without the structure of school, the relationships they may have had often are scattering, so they become more isolated. They have strong awareness. Anyone has strong awareness at that age. It's a normal developmental thing at that age of life to want to go out and explore and have adventures and try things out. But sometimes with some of the other things that can come along with FASD, like impulsivity or some of the maturing emotional things that aren't caught up yet, you can have some things that for parents are pretty scary. And so I had a lot of parents that were desperately trying to control their kids, and they wanted me to help them with that. And what I realized is the therapists that I worked with needed help with learning about what was going on for them, so that when their kids who we weren't going to be able to control, because I've got kids, I can't control them either. We don't control other people, we only have control over what's going on here. And learning how to have more ability to recover from the stress might make us safer places for our kids to return to when they need us and they are asking for help. So I started creating these groups, and I created them with a colleague of mine who had a young adult in his 30s with FASD, who's been diagnosed with FASD. And because I thought these parents might really like to hear from another parent whose child survived that stage. And so that's how I started doing these groups. I was then brought to Interwoven to do the groups for the staff, because all of the staff at Interwoven are living experts. They are all adoptive or kinship caregivers, and they were really kind of having a hard time with some of those things going on in their lives too. And then when the new African Family Support Program was created, I was hired, and I still do a lot of polyvagal groups with caregivers who are, quite frankly, very terrified and very isolated, because they're dealing with often and living with people with FASD, trying to fit them into and work through all of those school systems, medical systems, all of the different systems that you all know that don't fit well. And then they also have kids who, because of what's going on inside of them, maybe using aggression to try to manage their world. That's how their behavior is expressing what's going on. They're trying to do their best that they can. And aggression towards caregivers is very poorly understood and very stigmatized. I think actually maybe even more than FASD, but I could be wrong on that one. But there's often a combination of all sorts of neurodiversity, neurodivergence, and mental health, trauma, all of those things together that create that place of AFGA. It's more complicated than that, but okay. Oh, wait, forgetting I'm in charge of this part. There we go, okay. Some of the things about polyvagal. One of the things I love about it is it's universal. We all have a nervous system, but it's also highly individual. Your nervous system is different from your nervous system, is different from your nervous system, because of the experiences you've had and how you've understood life and your genetics and all sorts of reasons. And I find that this is very respectful to that. There's no one telling you how you should feel or what's right or wrong in this teaching. I don't like the scientific language, and I find it problematic because most of us aren't scientists. But what I do like is all of the people who are kind of creators and are happy for people to reinterpret and re-language and re-story. They're really open to creativity. And what I love ultimately is, and what I get from it is self-respect and self-compassion, which then gives me space to have respect for you and compassion for you. And I think that helps create more community, which is really important. I love that piece on the one side that says, this is something I very deeply believe. People do the best they can with what they have available to them in the moment. One of the reasons I like to run polyvagal groups, and I love polyvagal, is it helps people understand that about themselves, because the person who judges us usually the most is ourselves. And I think as parents and caregivers, which is the population I'm more focused on now, we're very hard on parents, in particular moms. But moms are hard on themselves. There's a long history of that. So I do love that this gives some movement in that kind of shame and blame stuff. So some of the basics. This is a picture of your polyvagal system. It could be creepy, but it's also kind of cool. These are nerves that make up what we call the autonomic. I'm going to be a little sciencey, so but hang in, I promise it gets better. This is our autonomic nervous system, which we can also just call our automatic nervous system. It's the nervous system that is created to protect us. It is in place for us to help protect us and keep us going and alive. It's a beautiful thing. So there are, what Stephen Porges did is he kind of split into three this part of the nervous system. So the safety system, which he calls the ventrovagal system. So vagal, the word vagal is wandering, means wandering, because this is a nerve that wanders through our body and is all connected. So the ventrovagal is the top part, it's the nerves that go up from our heart, connect to the front of our base of our brain, come through our neck, behind our ears, behind our eyes, in our face. And when the safety part of our system is running things, that's the main part, is the part that's also connected to that cortex, strong part of our brain that's involved in executive functioning, which I know we all hear about. The next part of the nerves goes down our spine. So when we get a threat, we have something called an amygdala, which is in the very middle of our brain. It gets information. Kim Barthel taught me about this stuff. She calls it Amy brain, and I love that when I talk to kids. I call it their Amy brain. And Amy's job is to decide whether something's safe or dangerous. And it takes information from our sensory system to decide if it's a threat or if it's not. And that's oversimplifying it. That's okay, we can oversimplify this stuff. Then sends out a message to the HPA axis, hypothalamus, pituitary, adrenal. I swear this took me years to be able to memorize this stuff, so don't worry. If you're good at this, good for you. I'm only good at it because I've practiced a lot. The HPA axis then shoots out things like cortisol and adrenaline, and our body physiologically changes. Our heart rate goes up. The blood flow changes from our cortex down into our heart, our lungs, our arms, our legs. Muscles in our ears change. The smallest muscle in your body is in your inner ear. When we experience threat, it shifts so that we hear low noises more than high noises, because low noises are more threatening. Isn't that cool? I think that stuff's really cool. And it's why when you have a kid that's upset, they go, "You're yelling at me," when you use a stern voice. Because a stern voice is a lower voice. And it sounds threatening, so it sounds like a yell. How many of you got, "I'm not yelling"? So I love understanding why this stuff is happening, because when you understand why, it gives you power. So that's your sympathetic system. Those nerves run down your spine. There's another thing, and this is the part that really Stephen Porges brought up that we weren't really understanding before. And it is the dorsal or overwhelm system. And those are the nerves, so you see that bunch of nerves at the bottom? There's nerves that go from the back of the base of our brain down through our diaphragm into our digestive system, which is why our digestive system gets out of line when we're under stress. Right? I'm sure everyone here has experienced that. We now know that we can treat things like depression through our digestive system sometimes better than with medications designed to treat the brain. The stomach is now seen as the second brain in the medical field. Don't ask me a lot more about that because I can't explain it. But I know that's true. So the point that's really important about understanding dorsal is, it again is a system that is meant to protect us. And this is what dorsal, give me 1 second, I just want to just remind myself of something. Okay. Dorsal is basically when we are under life threat, sudden life threat. Our brain may make the less than fraction of a second decision to go have a dorsal response, because it's decided that you are safer to shut down than to fight or flight. So that's why sometimes under life threat, people zone out. They dissociate, they can even faint. Your body is protecting you by, it actually removes sensation so you can't feel pain. That's how protected it is. The problem with it sometimes is that after a life-threatening situation like that, people can go, why didn't I fight? You didn't actually have a choice. Your body, your brain chose that for you because it thought in that split second that you were safer shutting down than fighting or running away. It might have shut you down because it's also a recovery place so that you could recover enough to get up and run away when the moment was right. So that's part of what the dorsal does. But the other part of what the dorsal does is when we're under too much threat for too long, too many layers from too many different directions, we run out of steam. And our body shuts us down in order to try to force us to recover. So how many of you have been, I experienced this a lot in my practice in COVID, where people were just like, they couldn't find joy, they couldn't think properly. Actually, I just had a number of big stressors happen in my life before Christmas. And after Christmas, I was saying to my colleagues, my brain isn't braining. I couldn't think. I couldn't make decisions well. I felt like there was just mud up here. That's dorsal. Your heart rate actually lowers in dorsal, and you just kind of numb out. And it's a state where you need to be looked after. When I'm teaching people, I say, treat yourself like you have the flu. If you can recognize it in someone else, treat them like they have the flu. Look after people in dorsal because what they need is to recover. What we often do, so one of the big things about polyvagal or about sympathetic is in sympathetic, because we have to fight or flight, our heart rate's going well, we're going high, we have mobilized energy, right? We can get stuff done. And so we often force ourselves into that state because it feels powerful and capable. But if we're supposed to be shutting down and recovering, and we're forcing ourselves into sympathetic, we're actually wearing ourselves out the door. But as moms, and I'm sorry, I'm only speaking to moms, dads are included in this. I just happen to be a mom, so it's easy for me to say to that. I know I pushed myself into sympathetic. It's why I got Graves' disease. I had too many stresses for too long. Eventually your body will shut you down. So I'm just going to describe in Dana's terms what it feels like in the three separate things. Does it, so far, does this kind of, are you kind of going, oh, this makes sense, I can recognize this. So when our ventral vagal next say we are safe, we recognize that we're safe, we're okay. This is what it feels like. Our the top part of our nervous system, the ventral vagus, is now helping us navigate the world in safety with flexibility, flexible thinking, creativity. We can explore options and see possibilities. We can connect with other people. We can enjoy a relationship. Our sympathetic nervous system is still working. It's just regulating the blood flow and our heart rate. It's giving us enough energy to meet the demands of the day, helping us mobilize in play and move in passion. So it's still working. And the dorsal system is helping us digest, rest, and restore. So they're all working together. That's what it feels like when things are going well. Nobody is there all the time, and it wouldn't be healthy if you were like that all the time. Threat is real. We are in a world where there are multiple threats coming at us. A lot of the time we have old triggers that we're reminded of. The goal of learning about polyvagal is not to be feeling safe all the time, and if you do not feel safe all the time, you are not feeling. Remember in the last presentation when they were saying regulated doesn't equal calm? If I'm under a threat, I'm regulated if I'm in the sympathetic system, because I'm regulated to meet the demands of the threat. Does that make sense? We often see dysregulated as being upset, but if I'm in an upsetting situation and I'm upset, I'm kind of regulated actually. My body's protecting me, that's a regulated state. Once we experience threat and the sympathetic system takes over, this system actually shuts down. So we can't think properly. We go into a reactive state. We go into our middle part of our brain. We're reacting more on memory, not on creative possibilities. We start to experience a sense of unease, lose our cognitive abilities. We move out of social engagement into self-protection mode. We start to interpret other people as being a threat, and we have a harder time doing relationship. We start to mobilize for fight or flight, or a deer in the headlights kind of freeze, that freeze with energy where I can take off any second. And you might start to feel that cortisol and adrenaline in your body. And your digestive system, the dorsal system, is starting to get your digestive system out of balance. In that like threat or the overwhelmed state, you feel zoned out, shut down, you dissociate, disappear, freeze with collapse, which is a very different kind of freezing. There's no energy, it's a very low heart rate, and that's when your digestive system really goes out of whack. So that's just a different flavor. Those are 3 distinctly different experiences. And understanding that in your own body. So one of the problems is when you feel threat, which we feel lots of times, we don't look at what's going on inside. We look externally for threat. We don't look for safety. We look for more danger in service of survival. We're built that way. That's not a bad thing. But what can happen for us is we can become hypervigilant. A lot of the people that I know and that I work with get stuck in what we call a sympathetic dorsal loop. They're very, very, very stressed, and then they collapse from exhaustion. They get a little bit of recovery, or they push themselves back up into sympathetic, but they never get all the way to the top. I'm going to move my thing here. I just want to kind of show you, this is Deb Dana's version. The way she tells it is a ladder. Sympathetic, the nervous system is a ladder. And you can see the different attitudes. She kind of created it more like a story, which that works for me. Right? And I liked the visual of the ladder of the top, middle, bottom, because that's how it is in our body. Some of you, actually, move to the next one, because one of the things I love is there's lots of different ways we can tell this story. And I've been meeting with Chochi and Linda and Michelle, and we've been talking about this and came up with the idea of a tree. I actually really love this. And the more I sit with it, the more I'm loving the tree. Because I can picture the tree, the leaves as being the safe, healthy, out the sunshine. That's that good. It's not bad. Neither good nor bad. Sorry, I have to be careful with my language because they're not bad. But that's that safety place. The trunk is that place of strength and energy and it's that. I like that it kind of looks like that's our spine. That's where those nerves goes up and down our spine to reach the rest of our body. And the roots are that underground, in the dark, quieter, needing nutrition, needing rest place. So that's one way of looking at it. For some people, like for kids, you could use things like animals. So one of the families I work with, and I hope this is okay, one of the families I work with found this, and when their kid gets dysregulated, gets this, because look at this is a nice little doggy. Sorry, I hope that's okay. It's a little startling at first, but doesn't that describe how you feel sometimes? It's a really good visual of that. And this turtle is the most docile turtle I've ever seen. And I like for me, the turtle has meaning because it's like you can curl up and get safe in that shell. And I like that. But what I also like is there's different things that mean different things to all of you. And so you can create and think of what has meaning for you. in Porges' last book, he uses a stoplight. So green being safe, yellow being that sympathetic, when you rush through the light, not, sorry. Yellow or red is that stop, right? That's another way we can use color. We can use any color that has meaning to ourselves. Sometimes when I'm going through this, I'll get people to choose colors that have meaning for the different things because it just gives more representation to them. How many of you have heard of the zones of regulation being taught in schools? It's based on a similar idea. Also, the window of tolerance. Now, these are all kind of different ways to tell the same thing. I like the biological piece of this because it's talking about our actual nervous system. And I find learning about that makes me feel more like it's not just someone's idea, it's actually a real thing. But for different people, and I like culturally, depending on your history, what has meaning for you, you can bring that meaning to the story of your own system. So I think that's powerful. I'm trying to think about there was another thing that, let me back for a second. A couple of things that I missed on this slide. One is, this was brought up now, I can't remember her name's Natasha and Holly. This is, my brain remembers the first one of everyone's names, and then I freeze. It's Natasha, thank you. In Natasha's presentation, she talked about we weren't meant to self-regulate. One of the core pieces of polyvagal theory is we are meant to co-regulate. We are built to be within community. We are safer with others. In fact, if you think about the actual stress cycle, if I'm safe, if we're built, we'll go back to a tiger, I have a community, I go out, a tiger comes along, I go into fight or flight, I fight the tiger or I run away from the tiger. I either kill the tiger or I get away from the tiger back to my community, and then I celebrate safety. That's the way our nervous system is meant to experience, to go through things. We're meant to have a short, big response, have a reaction in that response, and then get back to safety. The way our world works now is we have a bajillion bunch of little threats that we see on our screens, in the news, in many, many different ways. We just came through COVID. I remember during COVID, so many people in my office going, why am I so stressed? Why are you so stressed? It's because we're living in a pandemic. But, I started thinking when I said this joke. But we normalize it because everyone's living through the pandemic, so we don't feel like we should be stressed about it. But our nervous system can't normalize a pandemic. It's never experienced it before. And it sees all sorts of threat signals, things that are changing, the threat of possibly being sick, a loved one getting sick. There were so many threats. And I likened it to, you know what it's like when you're in the kitchen and your cook fan is on? And you kind of don't notice it, but then you turn it off and you feel this, some of the stressors we are experiencing all of the time are like that. They're in the background and they're affecting us all the time, but we normalize it and ignore it. And we actually need to kind of pay attention to the fact that we're experiencing a lot of stress and take care of ourselves in that. There are ways we can take care of ourselves, and part of the way we can do that is co-regulating with other people, which is why I develop groups. And it's funny because I was realizing as I was thinking about this presentation, I will do polyvagal theory stuff in my private practice office with one-on-one with clients. It's never as effective as it is when I'm doing it with a group. Even if I'm doing it with a group online, the co-regulation that happens is more powerful to help people learn than one-on-one even. So having community is really powerful. The other piece there's a word on the right-hand side on your screen that's neuroception. Neuroception is really important too, and it's important in the whole community thing. Neuroception is just the idea that when I walk into a room of people, I can feel without thinking, I can feel what their nervous system is doing. When I walk into my home, I can feel what's going on in my home. And if my child walks in the door and they're upset, I can feel it before they open their mouth. And my nervous system will start to arm up a little bit, right? Because in service of survival, that's how we're made. If I'm getting signals of danger from you, I'm going to need to arm up and go, where's danger? What's going on? It's a beautiful thing. But we also have to be aware of that, because as caregivers, if we're supposed to be giving signals of safety to our kids, how do we then regulate our nervous system again so that we can give signals of safety? And so earlier I was talking about the loop, the sympathetic dorsal loop. Just check that. Okay. So the thing about the sympathetic dorsal loop is when we get stuck in stress, crash, recover a little bit, stress, what happens is we start to get super hypervigilant. And I'll tell you a story. In COVID, actually, I was working with this family that I'd been working with for a long time. And the mom in particular really needed to get out of the house. So I found a parking lot. It was at the yacht club. I don't belong to the yacht club, and I have to say it, the yacht club, because I think that's how it should be said. But no one was using it, and it was, of course, in a very beautiful place, right beside a river. And so we would go and we would park there and open our windows and talk to each other in our cars. And then as things progressed, we were able to get our chairs out of the cars and sit in lawn chairs. And so I was learning about this polyvagal stuff and learning about safety. And so I was sharing with her. Beautiful spring day. It was sunny, the birds were out, we could hear the water. It was just a gorgeous day. And this is someone who I had a very strong relationship. I've been working with her for at least 5 years, supporting her and her family. Really strong relationship with. And so I was telling her about safety, and I said, like, for example, right now, how do you feel? And she said, oh, I can't feel safe, because if I feel safe, something's going to happen, and I won't be ready for it. And that's what happens. That's what hypervigilance is. But the problem with hypervigilance is when I'm actually safe and I'm being hypervigilant, the strain on my body is tremendous. It's hard on every system in my body. And I'm operating out of my midbrain, not my thinking brain. So I feel like I can leap to attention right away, and I can, but I'm going to react. I'm not responding thoughtfully, I'm reacting. If I'm never getting back up to safety, I'm in a reactive state all the time. And I don't know about you, I've been there. I've been in that reactive state all the time. I don't like living in my own head and body when I'm in that reactive state all the time. I don't feel good about me, and I have a much harder time doing good parenting. Yeah, parenting's hard. Sorry, I'm just reminding myself of how hard parenting is. My kids are 21 and 23. We're kind of getting out of it, so it's good. But it's just important. The other piece is every time, actually, I'm going to move my slides ahead a little bit. So why do I love this stuff so much? Because the more self-aware about this stuff we become, the more empowered I become. We can become about our responses, our health, how we can be in community, what we need, but also what the people around us need. We can recover more. So every time we get up to the top of the ladder or the top of the tree, we are giving ourselves a hit of recovery, a little hit of oxygen, a little hit of healing. We're getting relief from that hypervigilance. And the other piece that's really important, particularly about that dorsal thing, is especially with dorsal, but also sometimes with that sympathetic response, there's shame. We often don't like how we're reacting. We feel shame about, why can't I think? Why can't I get anything done? I have this list of things I need to do and I'm not doing anything. When we can actually go, it's because I've had too many stressors and I have too much going on and I need help and we can recognize that, we cut ourselves a little more slack. we're much more gentle and we have self-compassion. It releases us from that shame that we feel when we're in collapse. And every time we recover, even for a moment, we're building a little bit of resilience in our system. Just wanted to quickly connect it to FASD, and a lot of this has been spoken about, but we know from science that prenatal alcohol can change the way the nervous system responds to stress. The higher resting cortisol rate, a faster reaction time, harder time recovering from stress. So that's important to know, and to help people with FASD, but everyone, we all need to know that that's one of the factors in FASD. We also, as has been spoken of numerous times, the poor fit in systems is probably more stressful than any other part of the whole thing. We all know what it's like to ask for help, and instead of being helped effectively, being told, oh, you can only receive help this way, when you know that's not an effective way, or it's your fault because you're not using the system that we're providing for you, or there's a lot of blame within our systems. And those are very big stressors. Those are in the families that I support, hands down. Their aggressive child is nowhere near as stressful to them as trying to get help within the systems. Also, caregivers, partly because of cultural things, partly because of COVID, this dumb Eurocentric idea that becoming a strong individual is a good thing, we become very isolated, and isolation grows stress. Isolation in and of itself is a threat. And the other piece with FASD is we know that many of the clients that I've seen, the combination of FASD and trauma makes it really hard to understand, to interocept, which is understand what's going on inside. So the more we can help people with FASD as well understand what's going on inside and why they get upset, and I mean, it's all normal, it's stuff we all experience, it's stuff we all do. Nothing's wrong, but I think that again, using Polyvagal in the, I wish I had used your presentation. This makes me sad, because I know that you spoke about Polyvagal, and I want to keep exploring how to tell the story and how people understand the story of what's going on inside of them. Because when you have poor interoception, it makes it even harder to get what you need, identify what you need, and get what you need. So I wanted to take a couple minutes and talk just a little bit about some simple polyvagal practices. This is something I do when I'm running my groups online. So you can do this sort of stuff even online. So if you wouldn't mind, just take a moment. If you're comfortable, I know we just ate, so everyone's a little groggy and tired, and that's fine. I get that way after lunch too. Just kind of straighten up in your chair if you can, and move your shoulders if you feel like it. Just if you notice some tension. And just take a breath or two if you feel like it. And what I'd like you to do is I'd like you to think, what is your favorite snack? Just think about it. What's your favorite snack? Can I ask if there's anyone willing to share what their favorite snack is? Just shout it out. Yeah, go ahead.
My mom's brown sugar cookies.
Oh, your mom's brown sugar cookies. Okay, is there a story about that?
It's something her mother taught her when she was a teenager, and we learned to cook them.
Yeah.
But we don't make them because she makes the best ones.
Okay.
It's
Okay.
great.
That's great. Does anyone else have one? That's really fun.
Sweetgrass.
Sweetgrass. Yeah. Tell me about what do you love about sweetgrass?
Harvesting.
Harvesting. Oh, wow, okay. Sounds like you got good memories with that. Okay. Sweet grass. Anyone else have some? Yeah.
Ground after the rain.
Yeah, ground after the rain. Wow. Okay. Yes.
Fall. You're in the
The
bush.
fall, the smell of fall. Yeah. Okay. Okay, so as we talk about this, and as you experience that, did anyone notice anything happen inside a little bit? Did it kind of wake you up a little bit, and does it feel kind of good? And as you heard other people, I heard when people were saying things, other people kind of started laughing a little bit and kind of doing a, that's just the simplest way, even thinking about a safe sense, and smell is a good one, connects you to a story of safety, and then when you do it in a group and you talk about it, you start co-regulating. That's as simple as it can be. To get a little bit, what Deb Dana calls a glimmer, which is just a little hit of joy, a little bit of relief. So other things that can be useful, rhythm is regulating, which is, I think, humming. Humming is particularly interesting because when we hum, we vibrate our vocal cords, which actually help tone our vagal nerve. Humming is actually really powerful. It's interesting that it is part of many ancient religious celebrations and practices. Drumming is, man, it's so powerful this morning. Music too. I can be driving and a certain song will come on and I am like instantly, okay, like I can start singing along. I feel relief from whatever's going on inside my head. Those are glimmers. I'm moving. Okay, I want to, if you guys are up for a little exercise, another one, this is kind of an interesting one. Do me a favor for a second. Just kind of turn your head each way if you want to. If you don't want to participate, that's totally fine. Totally choose if you want to. But just notice any tension and stress in your neck when you do that. And if you're comfortable, just kind of put your hands behind your back. Yeah, behind your head. Don't push on it at all. But just hold your head. And hold your head still and look this way as far as you can without moving your head. Oh, look, sorry, look to your left. I'm sorry, there's people there. Look to your left as far as you can. And feel the stretch in your eye. Just hold it for a few seconds. And notice the wall beside you. And if you do a little breath or a little yawn, that's okay. That always makes me yawn. That's actually your vagal nerve shifting a little bit. Okay, so then do it the other side, same thing. Sorry, you can get a little uncomfortable, and if you're uncomfortable and you don't want to do it, that's fine. Do it on the other side. Notice the wall again. See the room that you're in, and then say you're okay and safe. And now look straight ahead. As far, pretend like you're looking across the world. Okay, just hold it for a few seconds. In the world of computer use, this is a really good exercise for a lot of reasons. When you're done, just kind of move your head and see if there's any difference in how your head feels. Anyone, not everyone will notice, but does anyone notice that they got more range of motion there? Yeah? That's a vagal exercise that actually you're stretching, but your vagal nerve connects to the back of your eye. I love that. It's cool, isn't it? Like that was our. So I want to tell you a story. One day that I got to use that. My stepdaughter has had tremendous, she has PTSD from tremendous traumas. And she was having a panic attack one day, and in her panic attack was hyperventilating, and her eyes just were uncontrollably darting back and forth. I don't know if you've ever seen that, but I was with her, and I just got her to do that. I didn't get her to hold her head. I just said, look to the wall over here, and then look to the wall over here, and then look straight. By the time she was looking straight, her breathing was back to normal, and her eyes had stopped flickering. It was very funny for me because there's a very big seriousness to the moment, but my son, who never gets to see what I do for a living, went, that is so cool! Because it totally shifted her nervous system back to safety. Because you're stretching your vagal nerve, but you're also giving your amygdala a sense, there's a wall, I am safe, I am here, I'm back in the present, I'm okay. Great things to have. There's so many really cool vagal tools. that we can use in moments. Bilateral movement, some people who know EMDR and butterfly hugs, that's a polyvagal I can use. And just connection. Think of what it's like when someone calls you up and you hear a voice and they're happy to hear you, they're happy to talk to you. And what does that do for us? Certain people can do that for us. Not everyone, but certain people can. Let's see. Future hope. So, I just wanted to share a little bit of what we're doing, and then we'll do some questions. Yeah, we're good. So, I'm meeting right now with Chochi and Michelle and Linda, and doing some polyvagal training with them. And then we're going to move to, actually, I wonder if you guys can can you describe what's going to be happening? The plan.
The plan
The hope.
is we're going to do some training with Tanya and some of that, and then we're going to try and create a train-the-trainer model that we can come to you guys, community, train you guys to do that with those in your community to help caregivers, your youth, yourselves, to help regulate the nervous system so that we can focus on going forward instead of staying where we're at.
So that's I'm excited. I love this stuff. It's cool. I'd love to know if there's any questions because I think that's all I got. I just put a couple of my more favorite books from Doug Dana or Stephen Porges, just in case you're interested, and my contact information. But I'd love to know if anyone has any questions about this stuff. It's also useful for us to recognize why we have triggers and what those triggers are about. Sorry. If someone has a question, yeah, raise your hand. I see a question right there.
Where does suppressed memories fall under all that?
Oh, good question. Well, suppressed memories are in our body, right? They're held in our body. What this does is it just helps us. Actually, I'll tell my story because it might help connect with it. Suppressed memories basically happen when we have experienced a threat and we have not been able to do anything about it, and we've not been able to complete the stress cycle. So we trap the stress inside of us. We trap the stuff inside. They're often suppressed because we're not safe enough to access them, which is our body's way again of protecting us. When we can be safe enough and cared for enough, they might start to come out. So I'll tell you what that might feel like. I was adopted, and my mom was severely traumatized by her mother. And so I was adopted so she could be the mother she never had, which you all know there's a little bit of a trick to that. And I've done my work, I'm good. But let me explain the trigger to you. I was with my mom, with my new husband, and she was telling a story. And as she was telling the story, I suddenly had this extreme urge to run out of the house. I could feel it in my belly. I just had this overwhelming, get out of here, you need to get out of here. Just get out. And now I'm a therapist, so I can kind of go, what's going on? What's going on? And I just sat with it for a moment, and I realized it was the tone of my mother's voice. And the tone of my mother's voice reminded my amygdala of many unsafe memories. And so then I could go in that moment, because I now know, right now I'm okay, and I need to take care of myself after this, because even feeling that is exhausting, and that's my body going, here's some stuff you kind of have to pay attention to, because it's been, when I was little, I had to trap all that stuff in, I couldn't respond.
So that could be trapped for decades.
Absolutely. Your body holds the score. Have you seen that? There's a book called Your Body Holds the Score, I think.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
I survived the 60s scoop, by my parents hiding us. They'd say, "Babam, which was a kizak?" They'd say, "There's a car coming, hide." But I remember, these memories have only come back
The past 5 years. And the reason they were coming back is with those children they found in BC.
Yes.
And all I remember was clothes falling on me in a box, or hiding in a field with all the grass laid down where we hid. But that's when those memories came back, is when I learned about those children. But I never remembered any of that all my life until then. So that's what I was asking.
Well, and the beauty of remembering is now you can retell your story, because when we're children, we don't understand what's going on. But as an adult, we can retell the story and go, oh, I understand what was going on, and I was actually safe. And my mom's mind, I was being held by my mother, even though I was in underclothes.
Plus, they made it into a game.
Oh, wow.
I didn't
What
see
beautiful parents. And even, what, sorry, I just, yeah, thanks for that story. Yeah, thank you. And I think that that's incredible that they were able to make that into a great game. And you still, remember that neuroception piece? You could still feel your parents' terror, even though they were able to make it into a game. And so that's probably why that got trapped inside of me, because you knew for some reason it wasn't safe. Wow. Thank you. Anyone else have a story or a question?
So for my question is, I've noticed like a big, huge thing, especially with the Polyvagal theory, is the process of how you get into those like the different areas and different aspects. I was just wondering, I've just from personal and professional experience with it, I just being someone who has neurodivergency, I've noticed that when I try to make it known to people who I guess are in a way neurotypical, like who haven't been, I try to tell them like, oh hey, if I keep on doing this stuff, it's gonna burn me out. And I think they take it to a way that it's literal, as in like, oh, that means she's not gonna, and it's like, no, my brain is legit gonna be hitting the dorsal vagal state very soon, and that's what I'm telling you guys. But what would be like the more like suitable way of just telling like people who are neurotypical, like you can't really explain the whole pathological theory to just a normal person, right? When you're just in the process of having like that state going down and everything. So I was just wondering, what are some strategies that someone who is neurodivergent, what are some strategies that they can use to kind of explain to people in a better way? Just being like, hey, this is actually something that is a exceptionality for me, and I just want to be able to explain this better to people, because I think sometimes they do take it the wrong way, being like, oh, you're burning out, you're just being kind of lazy then. You're just, So
I think what I'm hearing is what you're trying to do is you're trying to describe to people what your boundaries are. I'm listening to myself and I'm telling you what I need and what I need to say no to. But you're judging me based on yourself and what you're capable of doing, or what you've learned to push yourself through unhealthily. That's true. And you're not respecting my boundary that I'm describing to you. I think one of my favorite things about this polyvagal thing is it actually helps us hear our boundaries. When I'm going to go dorsal, I need to say no, because I'm useless when I need to be taken care of. I cannot do when I'm in dorsal. And I think as neurodivergent people, it's pretty hard to say why I need to say no to this. I think, honestly, my gut reaction is just say no, and one of the hard parts about doing boundaries is we feel like you need to be happy with my boundary. And I'm like a people pleaser, so boundaries were a hard one for me to learn. But I'm not gonna make you happy with my boundaries. I make my boundaries because I have to be okay. So I might not be able to make you happy with my no. And you might judge me. I don't know if anyone's heard of the let them theory. Yeah, I just caught this one. I hadn't heard about it, and I've like now listened to it podcast about it twice. Let them not understand. The more you understand yourself, and the more you honor yourself, and the more you can surround yourself by people who do understand you and do honor you, the better you will be. People, you will never be able to get everyone to understand, and that is painful and hard and isolating, so a bit threatening. But let them misunderstand and still say no and look after you. Does that suit? Okay. Yeah, because it's really hard to be neurodivergent. A lot of people don't get it. Yeah. Yeah. We done?
We'll wrap it up now just because I know you've got a shovel to catch and fly out of here. I don't want to have to miss it and then have to be like, oh, you need your horse. But I think it's been so good. I mean, the different types of, you guys, three of you talked about similar things, but in so many different ways. It's been really great. So thank you. Thank you for all the information. Thank you for sharing. Maybe what we'll do is we'll put the last slide up again during the break, just for people to get contact information. Because I know this would be, we didn't have any cards. Yeah, that's okay. So people can take pictures of that, or again, if you forget, you can always contact Michelle and she will do anything and everything that you ask.
I'm thinking send out a resource of all the slides from each of the presenters to you anyhow, so that will be.
And all of their contact information, if they're available. Awesome. Alrighty. So, what we're going to do now is,